Hey everybody, watch this review here with a look at Power Girl from the DC Universe Classics Wave 10, aka the Imperiex Wave. Now, as previously mentioned, Power Girl was one of the figures I was more excited about in this wave, which once again made me a little bit disappointed it happened to be a Walmart exclusive. However, I was able to pick her up on eBay, and here we are. Hang on a second, I'll open this package up. Power Girl stands 6 inches tall and comes with the left leg of Imperiex. Fans of the character will immediately notice that she doesn't look as busty as her comic book equivalent, but then again, I guess all the ladies of the DC Universe Classics line don't look as well endowed as they do in other media, such as the comics and cartoon. By the way, for people not familiar with the character, she is the Earth 2 Supergirl who somehow survived the entire Anti-Monitor crisis. Now, as enthusiastic as I was for this character, the first thing I notice here is the fact that the leg looks kind of bent in here. Also, on both sides, I mean, you kind of have a visible line from the production, which looks kind of tacky. It's really visible on her right side. I've actually seen this same line on a number of other pictures for the character. Plus, Miss looks a little split too. So I'm not really impressed so far as production quality goes, but I'm just going to quickly run through the articulation and so forth. Much like Giganta, Power Girl does not have a visible joint here for where it extends out to the side, like you would see on a lot of the male figures, such as Wildcat here. FYI, Wildcat and Power Girl did not get along. Little tidbit there. In terms of articulation, other than that, it's a pretty standard package. You've got your standard rotating wrist, standard single joint at elbow, bicep. I'm not so fond of this sort of a bicep / shoulder connection here at the on female figures, just because it looks kind of out of place, but you know. Arm has usual range of motion, but it's partially impeded by cape. Head only rotates. Other than that, it's a pretty nice looking head sculpt. I'm not getting a good look here, but good likeness, I don't know, but it's a nice head sculpt nonetheless. Ab / diaphragm joint. Actually, that's probably a gratuitous cleavage shot, sorry. Or not sorry, depending on your preferences. Waist rotates a full 360. The leg, as mentioned, has all the standard articulation, but not the visible joint on the outside. I suspect that's probably the reason why the sides look so funky and stuff, because Giganta had the same error here. And if they basically just took the same sort of thing they did for Giganta and transported it to a smaller scale, I can understand why that would happen. Thigh up here rotates, usual 360. Knee has a single joint. Calf down here rotates at boot, which of course is always a great point of articulation because it's 100% concealed and looks completely innocuous. And we have a point here at the ankle / boot. All things considered, Power Girl is a pretty nice looking figure. However, after consulting my Wonder Woman here, you can really see that it's basically entirely recycled sculpt here, which I believe they even use the same basic sculpt for Harley Quinn, right down to the fact it doesn't have the exterior joints in the legs. But just a quick comparison. I haven't taken this Wonder Woman out of package yet because I was going to pull it out once I started reviewing it, but yeah, basically the same sculpt around the arms, around the lower section, legs, just different boots, different gloves, different head sculpt, and a cape. Only other thing too is I think of course the upper torso here with the bust line has a different sculpt. But don't get me wrong or anything, you know, that doesn't really detract from it. It's still a really nice figure. In terms of paint variation, there really isn't much. All the costume is just solid tones, but the hair and the flesh will have variations, like there's different hues in the flesh and then highlights in the hair with deeper yellows. The one sort of disappointing thing is the fact they didn't use a lot of paint variation with the bust line here. I mean, it all looks basically the same tone, which wouldn't make sense just because there would be shadowing and so forth, but I guess if they added too much accentuation, it might be a little bit too risque for something that's down a kid's aisle, so maybe it's better they didn't. But, you know, the one really huge disappointment, though, is the fact that you can't turn that head up, which, I mean, just kind of disrupts the whole flying pose and everything, and I don't know. It's weird that you'd have a flying character whose head you can't move. I mean, why would they do that? The only real concern that you might have is the fact that there probably is a trend for production errors in terms of just the leg being bent, which prevents her from standing all that great, because the cape will weigh her down a bit in the back. Once again, I think it's just because they had her pose a certain way in the box, and the little rubber band thing was attaching it gradually bent it out over time, because, you know, factories, or well, not factories, and warehouses and stuff will have different temperatures, which might warp the plastic a little bit, and then that's all it takes. I mean, that's my explanation for it. I'm not 100% sure. The other little things, the fact that there are little lines running up and down the flesh portions in places, just from how the figure is produced, but yeah, it's a pretty solid-looking figure. It's a pretty likable character, so, you know. Till next time, folks.